You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin SouthFM, Crossing the Rubicon.
Yes, folks. Yes, it's another week of the Joe Dalton Show. We've had a couple of really interesting guests over the last couple of weeks, going from that spiritual journey, our belief system, and the power of the mind. And this week, I want to speak to a man who's probably after the same heart of himself, marketing and sales, but also has really found the truth about who he is and what life is about. And when I was reading his bio, it went into marketing and sales. And then what intrigued me and why I asked this gentleman on was what he said at the end. And at the end of his bio was really, life is meant to be easy. I'm sick of all this. We're conditioned to to work, live in a world that we should be freer. So I reached out, and he was delighted to come onto the show. And it is Mark Attwood. Mark, how are you?
Good. Hello, Joe. Nice to meet you.
Mark, I was fascinated, as I was saying there in the intro, about your history, of your life. And one of the things which interested me as well, you were in the Royal Air Force as well. Is that correct?
That is, yeah. I was 7 years old in a maths lesson, and these Harriers used to fly over the school. And I knew that I was going to leave the village I was in, so I looked at the Harriers and I said, that'll do. I'll do that. So I did.
Yeah, for me, it was 13 selling baked potatoes, and knew this is the career I want to get into sales, because it was fun. People were giving me money for talking to them, and I was going, this is good. So that's where my journey.
I thought you were going to say that you were selling baked potatoes, and that was it. You were baked potatoes for the rest of your life then.
No, yeah, it was sales. But I ended up then in Germany working. We probably supplied the squaddies up north in Germany with cars, and I worked as an agent for about 10 years in the supplying automobiles to the US military.
You probably know RAF Ryan Darling then.
Yes, yeah.
And I played a lot of football there years ago.
But we and then I ended up on, that was the Billionaires Boys Club. That was, as you can imagine, contracts with the US and a lot of money sharing hands. And then I ended up about 2 years in aircraft carriers, traveling around the world on aircraft carriers. One of the things I noticed as well, which was quite interesting, was in the military, each department did a certain job, but they didn't know what they got their work from the people next door. They did their work and passed it on, and they didn't know what the end result was.
And well, that's how they control the world.
Yes, but that's years ago. I used to think, that's because they're just getting stuck in doing this and moving it on, and everyone is just focused on their own job. But then, as years went on, I kind of went to realize it's so no one knows what's going on.
Well, this is how Obama, Biden, and Clinton managed to hide the fact that they took down the SEAL 60 and bribed. That's just come out on the internet yesterday. That's how they do it. You compartmentalize things.
But that's shocking. I think the Biden thing that's happening in the world, and we'll get into that at a later.
Yeah, I dodged straight in. Sorry, Joe.
Tell me, when did this all begin? For me, I went on this sort of journey about 20 years ago, and it was sort of, I'm a curious person, and I ask questions all the time, and I read an awful lot of books, and I sort of I always find a trail, and I always see if something is true, or if someone has heard it from someone that's heard it from someone and it doesn't add up. But that's where we all have to start. So 20 years ago, I went on this journey and was reading everything and all. And then I just sort of realized one day I was in London on the M1, and I was stuck in traffic. There was 6 foot of snow on each side. And I in the car, and I was working in software at the time. And I went, what the hell am I doing here? This is not the way I'm meant to live. And that was a second flip in my life that even brought me further into a journey of truth, of, life is meant to be easy. We're not meant to be killing ourselves, but for some reason we do. More people are earning more money every day, but they are not taking home less because they're hocked in debt. So where did it all begin for you? What was that moment that you went, I need to change here?
Well, you brought up a load of questions and a load of memories, so I don't know which one to answer first, but I'll start with basically, on a spiritual level, you get pulled in certain directions, shown a door, and then it's your choice if you walk through the door. So that's kind of the quick analogy that answers the second part of your question. The first part of the question, I was extremely brainwashed as a kid. I tell the story about how I used to run home from cadets and salute the national anthem at the end of question time in the beat. And obviously I grew up in England. But then my dad died at the age of 37 with a brain hemorrhage, and I had to turn his life support machine off at the age of 17 because they couldn't get a response out of my mum. And that blew my whole world up. And then I was in the RAF, and I was in there for a couple of years. And then basically a couple of friends of mine committed suicide. One of those was cover up. I was also, when I was based in Germany, I saw things that were contrary to what the British government was saying were there. And also I found out that my nan on my mum's side was actually Irish. And I didn't know this. And then and her son had gone into the British Army in Belfast in the 70s and seen his best mate's head blown off, and he never knew that he was on the wrong side, And so, and that relates to living in Ireland and stuff. But so I knew something was wrong, and I knew I did. Also, I got given an award by Prince Philip at St James's Palace, and he didn't. And I was in my full RAF uniform at the time, and he didn't recognise the uniform. And I remember, and I looked at him. He held my hand and he went, I see you've joined the and somebody had to whisper in his ear and go, whatever, sir. And I was absolutely disgusted that the commander-in-chief didn't recognize this uniform. And I thought, what? And all of this sort of came together at the same time. And I was like, who am I working for? What's going on? This doesn't add up. So I resigned, which took me ages and ages, because I joined the Air Force at the highest possible level. And they spent a lot of money on me, and it cost me a lot of money to get out. And I was writing loads of poetry, and that led to me becoming a stand-up comic. I did a degree in economics in Manchester, and I ran a theatre company. I had a couple of TV shows, and I was just sort of like bowling through life. I was also a journalist. I worked at the Daily Telegraph, so I had loads and loads of experience, very, very young, to the point where I couldn't get a job because nobody ever believed my CV. So because I couldn't get a job, I had to start in business. And then, so that's a whole other story. I've been in business for 30 years, basically. But then what really cemented that kind of realization that things weren't as they were meant to be was in 1999. Do you remember everybody was terrified about Y2K?
Yeah, that never happened.
It never happened, but everybody was terrified. I mean, it was a serious fear. Everybody thought that the whole world was going to stop. Just before that, I was given a document in a curry house in Manchester, in Russia, for anybody that knows it, by a Canadian stand-up comic. And he handed me a thing called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And I read it, and it was a blueprint for the 20th century. It was written in the 1800s. It was like the notes, the minutes from a meeting held in Russia by what you call the Illuminati. And I read this, and I was absolutely horrified by what I read. I didn't know if it was all true, but I just read it, and I started looking into all sorts of things. Another thing he said to me, I'd spent a year in the US, and he said, listen, hey, Mark, what's on the front of the $1 bill? And I was looking at it. Before I looked at it, I was like, oh, God, I don't know. George Washington? He said, no. He said it's a pyramid, and he showed me it. And it's the Great Pyramid with the all-seeing eye. And I spent a year in America, and I never noticed it. And, yeah. and then I went, well, why is there an Egyptian pyramid on the back front of the $1 American bill? So that led to the next thing, Then I started seeing symbolism everywhere, learning about the Masons, learning about secret societies. And that led me down the road to where I am now, which is basically talking about the fact that the world is run by a load of satanic pedophiles, which is the truth.
It's interesting you say that, because I think one of the things that a lot of people happen when they go on that spiritual journey, and I did it 20 years ago, was I went down that conspiracy road. I think because we want to know more, we want that go down that road. Like I remember going down that road and going, oh my God, and reading books like that and going, holy Christ, what the hell is going on here? And there was a stage for me that if I absorbed too much of it, I would have gone insane. Like literally would have gone insane.
That's where we're at now.
Yeah, it really, and I think what's happened then and reading them and understanding what's going on in the world, and my faith is very strong now. I don't believe in dogma religion. I'm pedophilia, like most people. I fucking hate it. But I'm willing to speak out about it because everyone else isn't willing to speak out about it.
We have to.
It's like I did a show about it in one of my other podcasts, and we call it, the big elephant, the big white elephant in the room. But what it has led me to believe that all this is exterior shit is going on, and we can really conquer it and win it if we actually follow into our own hearts and come from a heart base instead of just the head, but coming from the heart. It will dissipate, but we have to get everyone on that road. So my question is, are you on that level of the conspiracy, knowing that it's reality, or are you sort of kind of raising your vibration to a higher vibration to go, look, this stuff is going on, but I know that I can actually live above this?
Yeah. Well, I've known about these things that I've just mentioned, which is shocking to some people, I know, but I'm here to tell the truth, for a long time. So it's been a very slow reveal for me. A lot of people during the lockdown have woken up during the lockdown, and a lot of people are flipped the other way and completely locked down with the masks on, with this fake pandemic, right? So you go through it, however you do wake up, you go through this sort of process of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then it's like, shit. And then it's a big depression. And then it's like, what can we do? Because the biggest problem with a lot of this stuff, and let's not forget the term conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA in the 60s to discredit people that question the JFK.
Mockingbird, which was a big CIA.
It's mind control. It's you see, but it's just ridiculous. But so I don't think of myself as a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm just somebody that is extremely open-minded, extremely open-hearted, full of love, wants to find out the truth. I've been through that process. I've been attacked and ridiculed, and my life got turned upside down a number of times. And I came to realize, because after I grew up not in a religious family at home, but my great grandfather was very big in the church in the village. I used to go to church to be with him, and I had a very strong connection with God as a kid. In fact, my first memory is actually demons coming to me in my room every night and trying to convince me to join them. And that wasn't a dream. That was a real thing. So demonic stuff has become a big theme of what I'm doing. I actually got asked if I wanted to be an exorcist by a medium last year over in Sligo, and which I think is what I actually am now. Is I'm actually doing that kind of work. So I'm going to fly off on all sorts of tangents here.
They'll fly off on tangents. That's what the conversation is all about.
So, spiritually, I started to get, it was a few years ago, I kind of knew, I had all this knowledge. And then I was like, well, okay, what am I going to do with this? How are we going to get through it? What is the point of all of this? I couldn't understand why these people who on the Georgia Guidestones, anybody watching this has not heard of them, go and look them up. It says this is a £30 million granite installation put there in 1980 in Georgia, which lays out the plans of the Illuminati in a kind of coded way. But one of the things it says is to keep the population in perpetuity with nature under 500 million people. That means they want to kill 7 billion people, which is what this virus was supposed to do. I happen to think that plan's failed, and that we've got what we're seeing now is theatre whilst these bad guys are being taken out. And I'm saying the word bad guys just to make it easy to group them between bad and good. So the spiritual journey for me was very, very much based upon starting to understand and hear, the stuff you were talking about on my bio about life is easy and stuff. That was like, I got a download to write a book called Life is Easy. And at the time I was reading something by Stuart Wilde, who's an amazing author, who wrote The Infinite Self, and he wrote another book which was called Life Wasn't Meant to Be Difficult, which is an excellent book, because it isn't, because the world that we've been living in is not normal. And you said we're killing each other. That is not normal. We think it's normal because we've been taught to believe that war is normal. We've been taught to believe that we're the ones polluting the planet. We're not. It's the satanic element that is controlling the planet that has put us in this kind of prison, and money is part of that control grid, because money is, I did a 3-year degree in economics and nobody ever mentioned fractional reserve banking. No, it never got mentioned. Once you understand fractional reserve banking, you realize how this control system works. And when you look at everything they're selling us in the pharmaceutical industry, you realize how this control system works. And when you really look at what they're doing to the food, when you look at the chemtrails in the sky, which people still deny, even though they're there for all to see, it's just extraordinary. So I've come to the conclusion that we are under a spell, because the other thing I've come to the conclusion is that magic is real. In fact, I am within spitting distance of a castle where W.B. Yeats and Aleister Crowley used to do magic ceremonies as part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So all of this has led me to stuff, and I've been guided completely by spirit, and have been now for a couple of years, because 2 years ago I got to the point where I'd moved to Ireland from Marrakesh with my 5 kids. I split up from my wife. I was suicidal, and I was given a choice one night. You either go now or you've got something else to do. And so that's why I'm still here, and that's why I'm talking the way I do.
We talk about this a lot in a lot of shows I mentioned, which is the dark night of the soul. And that is a case when, for really to have that true awakening, you need to drop. And that is when the brain switches off from the soul and you have that release. For me, it was a moment, I talk about it in my TEDx. It is a moment when I just went, holy crap. All this stuff out here is complete rubbish. Yeah. All I need to do is focus on what's going on in here. And if I focus what's going on in here, none of that matters. Absolutely none of it. Because everything that we're seeing in this world at the moment, with COVID, with the governments, with everything that's going on, that's a reflection of ourselves. So, because if you look at who we are, say collectively, all that we're seeing is a reflection of who we are ourselves. And this COVID, for me, I believe COVID has come as somewhat as a gift, because it's making more and more people wake up. You could call it that it is the second coming, really, because a lot of light workers, wayshores are all sort of now, this is our time, this is our reality, and this is where we are. And this is the change that we needed for the world to be a better place.
100%. I mean, we've been locked into our left brain, which is what the education system is about. The media is all about. It's a fear-based system. We need to move into the right brain. This is where righteous comes from. When you are in the right brain, that's where all the beautiful stuff happens. That's where all the magic happens, all the dancing and the singing and the creativity, whether that's business, poetry, music, or whatever. And that's the beauty. That's where the human race belongs. Now, it's interesting you say we create this, because I've lectured on the law of attraction. I've written about the law of attraction for years and years. I've used it. I use it. I mean, we manifest everything. Life comes towards you. You don't go towards it. Time doesn't exist. We have these incredible manifesting abilities, and that manifesting ability is going through the roof. I was just looking at the Schumann resonance this morning. All the white light coming down now is all this new 5D reality.
The power of metaphysics.
It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Did we create this? I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm actually interviewing some people at the weekend who are phenomenal. It's going to be like a 5-hour interview, because these guys have proof to me that we created this universe. And we are part of that Gaia energy, male and female, that has gone throughout time and had multiple lives and created this in order to experience it. We are fractals of that God energy, source energy, whatever you want to call it, in order to experience it with all the highs and lows. And I have a long running argument with somebody who's quite famous in the UK and outspoken, because she says, everything's an inside job. Everything is about us creating and manifesting the future. There's a lot of truth to that. But the argument we have is based upon the fact that I've spent a number of years trying to point out what the problem is. And the problem has to be faced up to, because the problem is so horrific, most people just won't believe it. It's a bit like David Icke. David Icke has been around and around for years, and his books are absolutely full of incredible information. But most people stop when he talks about the lizards, and then they just go, well, he's the guy who thinks the Queen's a lizard. I'm not going to listen to anything he's saying. So it's an extremely difficult situation because you cannot tell people what's going on. You can't lecture people. People only find out the truth inside themselves when they've discovered it for themselves.
Yeah,
and I think that's why.
Yeah, here's what I've learned over the years is I can't force my opinion or my belief on you. I can only just believe in what I believe in, and hopefully you will see the way I am, that ripple effect, and then you can make those changes. And I think it's like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
In sales and marketing, people need to hear things 9 times before
I think it's 47 now.
47, but it's
it was 9 in about 1962.
we need to hear it a lot of times before it even creates that doubt in the mind. And it's a conversation like this, it's a conversation with someone else, it's another show, it's all these things add up to maybe to say someone, I'm just going to just do the investigating.
Well, that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's happened with mainstream media as well is that the citizen journalism now has come more powerful than what we've been told. And yes, I do believe that knowingly or unknowingly, a lot of mainstream media is saying something or controlling something, not because the guy woke up in the morning and says, I'm going to control this, because it is generation, going back right from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-grandparents, who were probably being controlled in a society. Look at the Industrial Revolution. That was to get us all into school so we could work in factories. So there's all these little bits that have moved along that are causing the mainstream ideology to flow. And with COVID, people now are going, actually, this is a lot of bollocks. I want things to be better. I want things to be better. A lot of this stuff over here that you're talking about, if you're talking about, lizard people, or you're talking about deep corruption, or, we know people talking about underground military bases where there's 1,000 people. Could be right. It could be right, but I'm not ready to listen to this, because if you're telling me that, that's making me not even believe the small thing that I might believe, because that's a load of bullshit.
Well, I know that this is not a long show, so I thought I'll just dive in. And, a lot of people listening to this think, this guy's nuts. And I fully understand that. I know it's nuts, but it's true. That's the thing. Yeah.
What I'm trying to get at is that our job is to get people on that path, right? What are we all here for? For me, I believe we're here to remember who we are. Okay, yeah. Deep down, forget about all that stuff, to remember who we are. And if I can change the way I am, someone else might go, he's not stressed, he's not worried about anything. What's he doing differently? I say, well, I'm just living in my heart. Instead of going, you need to listen to me because those fellas over there, and they're eating people. Which is the balance to get the guy over? Or do we throw all the shit on someone and they go, okay.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm in a very deep state of urgency, because I know the clock is ticking. Right. Yeah. I was just on the phone this morning to somebody who's connected to the original people of Australia, sometimes known as Aboriginals, but that's not a good thing to call them. And they're deeply connected to the earth energy, which is why the satanic monsters that have run this world and divided everybody across the planet have taken, the first thing they do when they've gone into America or Australia or anything else, take out the original people, because the original people, the natives, have deep connections to the earth, because that's what. So back to your original point about, we created all this blah blah blah. Well, I think we've been hijacked. We've been hijacked by an external force of darkness, which has embedded itself very deeply into us, made us forget who we are, and created this segregation system, and then run us all on money, so that we're literally nothing. They call us useless eaters. That's what they call us. You know, we are literally on a farm, prison farm, bullshit system. None of this is real. And once you understand that and you see through it, this is what 3D to 5D ascension means. But so there are a number of timelines going on at the moment. One timeline is that this COVID thing's real, and they kill 6 billion of us and they take over the whole place. And the other thing is that we go into the golden age, 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. I personally, I'm manifesting that.
Yeah.
That's what's coming. But it's only going to happen if enough of us, in the Bible it says 144,000 people, light workers, are here to help assist us through that ascension process. That ascension process is going to happen around, well, according to some of my spiritual insiders, we've already ascended, but not everybody's going to make it. And the 21st of December, around that time, is a really important time because there's going to be this solar flare and this download of energy. And there's a really, really important ceremony happening in Australia around Uluru, which is their name for what other people know as Ayers Rock, which is the heart chakra of the planet. Because underneath that is this huge crystal that has been until recently has been infested with this blackness. And what they're saying, what the original people, not me, what the original people of Australia are saying is that there's clusters of 144,000 people in every country around the world that are required to meditate and vibrate at the right. So back to your vibrational question, vibrate at a higher frequency, which means grounding yourself on the grass, which means eating organic only food, which means eating less meat, which means not drinking, smoking, which means meditating, which means walking in nature, which means being nice to people, you know, being kind to people. All these things will help you vibrate your frequency, and you will feel, I'm feeling it. I don't do anything unless I get that frequency. I get a rush. When I hear truth, I get a rush through here. Everything I do is guided by that feeling, which is incredible because we are magical creatures. We're incredible. We can levitate. You know, there's something like 250,000 recorded instances of Tibetan monks meditating to the point where they go into their light body and disappear and leave their body behind. You know, we can do this stuff, but we've forgotten it. So as you said, we've got to remember who we are originally before this incarnation. Because the other thing is, I've been here a million times and so have you. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation now.
But here's the thing as well. You mentioned there that it is vibration. And one of the things that I say to a lot of people is fear not. Because fear is a low vibration. Mm-hmm. And how we need to build above this is raise our vibration above fear to joy, happiness, and laughter, because that has been taken away at the moment. Yeah. I feel that we...
Why do you think they've shut the pubs?
Well, yeah, in Ireland, you know, but it's the one thing as well is we're being institutionalized. You know, we go out for our food and we stay at home, we do video calls, we work, people are working longer. So it's all just about work, which is money orientated. Mm-hmm. But the fun, laughter, and joy has been taken away. So I keep giving that message. Fear is an emotion which is a vibration. And
false emotions appearing real.
Yeah, and if we raise it above that, a lot of this stuff can actually fall apart.
Oh, it is. I think it is falling apart. But we've all got to play our part because we're part of one consciousness. There's only one energy in the universe. And Tesla said, if you want to think about the universe, think in terms of frequency. That's why they took all of his patents away from him. Free energy, scalar energy, directed energy weapon, everything. They took it all away from him. And what's interesting about Tesla is that he wrote about time travel in a paper in the 1910s or 20s. And a certain John G. Trump, which is Donald Trump's uncle, was a physicist and became friends with him and started working with him. And they, I believe, had the keys to time travel, which is what we're experiencing at the moment.
Here's the mad thing, right?
That'll melt some heads.
Well, here's what really gets me. There's a patent somewhere which was be able to run cars for free, but some corporate bought it and locked it away. Or they say, see, there is something to cure cancer, and some corporate
there is. It's in my cupboard.
But you know, and they're all talking about these, right? Patents that have been taken away, and I kind of sort of went, okay, we talk about these have been taken away, but why are we accepting that someone has stopped us from running cars for free? Why has someone stopped us from the cure for cancer? Why has someone all these patents.
I'll tell you why. Because babies now have like 30 injections before they're 2 years old. They've got fluoride. This island is the most fluoridated water in the world. Fluoride calcifies your pineal gland. It stops your connection to God. It pacifies you. It makes you docile. It makes you compliant. They have been spraying the skies with heavy metals forever. You need to remove heavy metals from your body. You're full of aluminium, mercury fillings. All of these things are designed to dumb us down. You go to college, you go into debt, student debt, you're saddled, you're on a hamster wheel. That's why. And then they put all this bullshit on RTE and the BBC that just melts.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why is it accepted that we go, someone bought that? It's like the fluoride. There was big campaigns to put the fluoride, get rid of it in Ireland, and the government came out and said, I remember what said, yeah, but we've just spent 3 million on this, and we have that there, and everybody went, oh, okay, well, we spent 3 million, we might as well use it. Instead of going, okay, you spent 3 million, write it off and stop it. You know?
Yeah, well, because they were so full of fluoride, they couldn't follow through. And because they're in debt, they couldn't follow through. They had to get up the next day to go to work. It's nonsense. The whole system is nonsense. I mean, this is the same governments that have us believe that massive skyscrapers will fall within their own footprint when 2 airplanes fly into them. It's utterly nonsense. But yet those people believe that that's true.
But here's
in fact, most kids now don't even know what 9/11 was.
No, they don't. Sure, half them don't even know what
1916
was. You know, but
I know. I wrote a poem about Dublin, about the protesters in Dublin. I put it up online the other day, and Irish people were going, "What happened in 1916?" Because I wrote about 1916 in it, and I mentioned Pierce, the poets, Paul Pierce, and they're like, "Who's that?"
Well, the truth about
I'm a blowing.
Like even talking about the famine, like the famine was genocide. Like there was plenty
famine
of
was
food.
genocide. It was not a famine. It was
plenty of
this
food.
country. They've been trying to destroy this country for centuries because this is a very, very spiritual, powerful place.
Yes.
And the original people of this country are the most incredible spiritual people. And thank God there are some people in this country still understanding that and understanding their history and where they came from. And because that frequency is the frequency that's going to save not just this country, but the whole world.
Well, do you know what I always say? And I'm saying it more and more now, that Ireland will be a beacon of light in the world of madness.
It will.
Yeah.
I believe it. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, and that's why I think I'm here, you know?
Yeah, I've got my nan's blood from Limerick running through me. I am not taking this shit. And, you know, and I'm getting spat at in the street. I mean, not literally, but I'm getting dirty looks.
But here's the other thing. You know? You said this earlier, okay? And lonely. You know, when we go on this and we start speaking the truth of what it is, it takes an awful lot of courage. And it takes courage because you are going against the grain.
Yeah.
And what was that, you know, I call it crossing the Rubicon?
Yeah.
When was that moment that when you went, you know, I'm going to cross this Rubicon now, and this is
look, Joe, I had a life where I achieved got into the Air Force as a pilot. I had my own TV show. I was a journalist at a national newspaper. I started a business that did 100 million quid turnover. Sorry, my ego was huge, and that had to die. And I'm not saying it's dead yet, but it went through the point where I was like, okay, there's nothing left. I don't know if I want to live now, right? And once you get to the point where you don't give a damn what anybody thinks about you, you are truly in your power. And you know, it's my mission in life to give other people their own power, or allow them to find their power, because once you stand in your power, it's actually, you realize that the whole thing's an illusion, you know. And actually one of the biggest moments that comes to mind is when I was in the UK about 7 years ago, and I realized the TV was hypnotizing the kids. So I got rid of the TV, and then I refused to pay the license. And then they came to the door, but at that point I'd learned some common law. So the guy came to the door and said, "Are you blah, blah, blah?" And I said, "I'm not answering that question. Plus I refute your implied right of access to this property. Please leave." And he just walked off. I was like, whoa. And I was shaking when I was doing it. But that was me jumping out of the matrix for the first real time publicly. And I was like, wow, this works. It's like magic. And it is, because words are magic. You know, words are spelling for a reason. Spells, they're spells, you know, and they use it against us. The whole system's really a thin veil. It's like a perception filter. You're just slightly to one side of it. But once you come this side of it and you see the truth, and there is only one truth, it's not I might have versions of events you disagree with, but there's only one truth. And the truth is you are an eternal spirit having a human experience. You're not a human having a spiritual experience. It's the other way around. And you are eternal, right? So once you understand that you're eternal, once you lose the fear of death and once you lose the fear of ridicule, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, for me, 2 out of 3 there. One is, yes, I believe we are a spirit having a human experience. And I use the analogy, when you jump into your car, you don't come to steering wheel. I believe that the body that we are in is part of earth. So dust is to dust, ashes to ashes. This is created here. We've inhabited to move around on it. So I believe that the speaking your truth, like for me, to be honest, I'm on that cusp. That ego is, that little bit of ego is still playing in its head, going, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to, and I go, no. And what I'm getting into, what I want to get to is that loneliness when you started to talking about this, and people, you've lost friends and people spitting in the street. That moment, was it kind of going, oh my God, I can't believe this? Was there any point that you feel, I'm just going to sit back and say nothing? And you were, because there's an awful lot of lookers at the moment. And those lookers down eventually, conversations like this will give those lookers, will give them the confidence to start speaking out themselves.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, the loneliness is palpable, but then on a spiritual level, I realized that I've never been alone. And, I feel, you have to look inwards because all the answers are actually inside. Going back to what you said right at the beginning, excuse me, in your heart, you have all the answers. Heaven is actually your head. It's an allegory for your head. You've already got all the answers. If you meditate, if you can, I know it's not easy for a lot of people. I found it very difficult, to be honest. But once you start meditating, once you stop taking the fluoride, and once you start eating the right foods and stuff, your pineal gland comes to life, and you start having visions. And everybody's got this ability, and you start seeing the truth, and the truth gets shown to you, and you get shown, and everybody's on an individual path. So not everybody has to stand up and talk like this on a podcast, because this is just my thing, right? Everybody's got their own specific talent and skill. Yeah. They don't have to stand up and shout about it. It's whatever it is that you're good at, whatever you bring to the world, each one of us is equally important. But it is about standing in your power. And at the moment, they're very, very clever with the language. Look at the COVID stuff when you go into the shop. Be responsible, take care of each other. And that's why people in a state of fear who believe that you are being irresponsible when you go into a shop without a mask, will sometimes shout at you and attack you. I mean, a friend of mine got pushed over at the vets yesterday in London. She's only a little girl, a big fella pushed her over. Get away from me. You're not 6 feet away from me. That's madness. For God's sake, anybody listening to this who doesn't understand this, go and look up the word coronavirus in books, medical books in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. It means common cold. That's all it is.
And looking at it, being an observer, I see, one country will say, oh, we're putting a lockdown in a week. And I go, oh, we're going in a lockdown here very soon. And lockdown originally was to get our hospitals ready, right? Get our hospitals ready. This is what they said when the pandemic killed nearly half the population. That didn't happen. But why are we going on another lockdown? And what upsets me is they count the numbers of COVID and the deaths are low, but they count the numbers. So the fear is in who got COVID.
Yeah. But we've all got it. We've all got these viruses.
But it's irrelevant. In a way, it's irrelevant because we're not counting the amount of people that committed suicide. We're not telling people that got the common cold or the flu.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because I went to see a friend here the other day. He's 23 and he was depressed. And I said, are you okay? And he said his 25-year-old best friend had just hung himself in the kitchen. My son came home from school the other day and said a 15-year-old girl had just killed herself. There's a girl who lives around the corner and all the friends are getting together and writing their letters, trying to convince her not to kill herself. The biggest problem with this disgusting, fraudulent thing that they're doing to us is suicide rates, depression, mental health. old people walking around with masks, depriving their immune system, depriving themselves of 20% oxygen, breathing in their own bacteria. It's utter madness. But I do think that the whole thing is being played out in order to wake people up. Because even this morning, I had a conversation with somebody who was very scared at the beginning of the lockdown. And she was saying, do you know, it doesn't make sense, this. How come you can go into here, you have to put a mask on in the shop, but they're letting kids go to school? And I really think this is, QAnon calls this the Great Awakening. And I think that's exactly what this is. People have to see it for themselves. They have to see through it. And what I've been told, and I'm not 100%, I mean, it feels right to me. What I've been told is not everybody's going to make it. This is a war, and it's the end of a massive spiritual war. And we have come here to witness it and take part in it. And not everybody's going to make it, but it doesn't really matter because you are an eternal soul. The other people in your life that you may have dropped off out of your life, if you have woken up, it doesn't really matter because they're non-player characters. This is a construct. This reality is a construct.
Yeah, your energy, and energy never dies. And that's going back to the spiritual being on it. And yes, there will be casualties, unfortunately, in this.
There already are.
Yeah, and what I'm and you said it there as well about COVID, about the people. But yes, every time the government make a law, or every time the government do a lockdown, I cheer because they've just woken up another couple of thousand people.
That is the good part of it. The other good part of it, I think, is that it is also being used as a cover. And because I do believe these deep underground bases are being taken out, and people need to look into this. These deep underground bases are real. They've been around forever. They have a whole tunnel system around the world. It's been there for years and years and years. This is where all the money goes.
Jumped in and I did a bit of research with Gene, was his name?
Gene Decode. I was about to watch his new video before we had
and one of the things which I'm quizzed about is if these are real and there are people there and there's a military war going on, where's all the casualties? Where's the guys that are getting killed? The military guys that are getting killed. Are they hiding them from their parents as well? Like if there was a war on, it's such and such soldiers are killed. So is this a war that there's no bullets being used?
Well, this is an interdimensional, intergalactic war, right? A spiritual war. It's not your classic, soldiers shooting guns war. There's lots of other stuff going on here, which is deeply esoteric and spiritual, and involves it involves a race. It involves a race that Hitler knew about called the Vril. Look them up, VRIL. Hitler and the Vril Society from the 1890s that got absorbed into the SS. These reptilian creatures that live underground. It's such a vast world beyond our tiny understanding of it, and I remember being a kid in school and saying to the physics teacher who was talking about visible light spectrum being like this, and I was like, well, we can only see this bit. What about the rest of it, right? So we are so in the dark. It's incredible. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. Look at what's on the power of this.
1414.
Right, and compare it to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now look at the car you're driving and compare it to 100 years ago. I mean, come on.
But one of the things as well, which I think is evolving, is in America. I believe me, there was a time that I thought Trump was the biggest idiot in the world.
Me too.
And I wished him nothing but death. Thought this man was everything. And I looked more into it. And one of the things that changed me was I was going, oh my God, I can't believe this man is taking children away from adults at the border and separating them. And I was angry about this. And I went, this man is evil. And I went deeper into it. And I found out that when he was separating the kids from the adults, they were doing DNA testing and found out that a lot of the kids went to
child trafficking.
Adults. Yeah,
that's what the whole war was about. It's about child trafficking.
And I kind of went, oh my God. And then I started looking at other bits of research, and I've seen the stuff that he's done. And I started bit by bit, started seeing what this person was doing. And then when friends of mine would say, are you mad? This guy says, where are you hearing it from? Where are you getting your information from? Are you getting it from face value? Because we are conditioned to listen to everything at face value.
Yeah.
Only when you start to research, you
Yeah.
then find the truth behind the truth.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter got into the car a few months ago and said, Dad, Trump's a paedophile. I said, no, he isn't. Right. Firstly. Secondly, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Because believe you me, if Hillary had won in 2016, we'd all be dead by now.
Well, see, the thing that I believe there was, they said, I get Trump in, he's an idiot. Nobody will vote for him because he's not in the political system. I think that was the plan, right? They were going to walk it because they said, let's get someone in that isn't political, that has no chance of winning, and we'll take this and we'll be able to then have that hidden agenda behind, the money laundering, the like even in Haiti and all these other small things like Biden now with his son and everything as well.
Big things. They're not small, they're big.
Well, yeah, big. Small in other, some people, depends where you're living, if you can't put food on the table, that's a big thing in your life, but they kind of went, oh my God, and he's got in there and went, you know what, screw yous, I'm going to show everyone what's really going on here.
Well, I think it's much longer in the planning than that. I think it goes way back. It goes way back to the 1920s. I said John G. Trump. It goes back to Kennedy. JFK created Q in 1962, right? So if you look at JFK's,
we believe that, that's why he was assassinated as well.
Well, I'm not sure he's even dead.
That's another thing.
That's another big one.
That's another revelation. But JFK's father was part of that establishment.
Well, so we think,
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Was that?
Don't forget, literally every single thing we got in our heads from somewhere has been.
JFK's father, we know, an Irishman who was politically. Had a lot of political power and was connected to a lot of underground crime and everything.
He's a bootlegger,
yeah. And all this builds relationships as well. But, you and me are not the first to have a spiritual awakening or an awakening.
No.
There was people in the 20s. There was people in, 1840. There was people in that have always had this. That all these have then escalated up to today, 2,000 years on.
Well, 6,000, 10,000, 20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, the human race goes back millions of years. I mean, every single thing about history of the human race is a lie. Isn't that? I mean, if you've ever seen Michael Tellinger's work,
I've seen some. I haven't delved into it too much.
I mean, everybody should go and look up Michael Tellinger on YouTube and type in granite footprint, right? And that's him in South Africa, stood next to a 6-foot human footprint in granite that's millions of years old. And once you've seen that, you've got to, it's one of those things. It just opens everything else up.
Mark, tell me this. 2021, I believe, is going to be the year of disclosure.
So do I.
Do you think that it'll be a brighter world? Do you think that we've a long way to go?
100%. 100%. I think we've got to go through, the human race is going through a dark time of the soul. Everybody should look up, the hero, the man with 1,000 faces, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. That hero's journey is embedded into every cell in your body. If you want to understand the hero's journey, just go and watch Star Wars. It's the perfect hero. The Bible is the perfect hero's journey.
The Hobbit.
We are at the end of a 26,000 year cycle. The world did end in 2012, and then we're in this process of birthing this new Earth. At a higher frequency, at a different level, literally, we're at a different size, with a new sun, with a new moon. It's actually phenomenally exciting where we're going. And I think the Ides of March next year is when we're going to start seeing some public trials and start seeing, maybe even before, but I think we've got 2 weeks till this election with Trump, which is the biggest election in history. We've got the 21st of December Ascension Sun stuff to look forward to. I think we're going to see some incredible things happen between now and next spring that will blow people's minds open. And I am praying and looking forward to those times, because we've been in a prison for so long. We've got Stockholm syndrome, right? And we're about to be released from prison. Some of us have been released early. And it's like, if you go and look up Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and there's a great animation of Plato's Allegory of the Cave on YouTube, And it shows this guy who escapes from prison. All they've ever known is the flickering lights on the wall of the prison guards from the fire behind them. He goes out, sees the sun, sees the birds, sees all the animals, sees the rivers, comes back. Look, it's amazing outside. It's amazing. What do? They kill him.
Yeah.
Instead of running out, they kill him. But that's what we've got coming.
What's the one thing that you would say to the audience? Because a lot of people, will listen to this. Some people will agree. There'll be other people think you.
I know there will be people be shouting at the radio.
What's the one thing that you'd say? Have an open mind is mine.
Well, immediately stop watching television, stop reading the newspapers, start grounding yourself with bare feet on the grass in the morning, learn how to meditate, stop taking fluoride, eat organic food, hug people that you love, forget about COVID, it's a load of bollocks. Tell people that you love them, that you love them, ring somebody that you've not spoken to in a long time, start becoming the human being that you were supposed to be in the first place. And
Mark, you're a gentleman, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Joe.
And remember, here at Dublin SouthFM, we're interviewing plenty of people around the world, conscious leaders, and that's why we have the Conscious Business Podcast, which is part of the Conscious Business Academy, offering purpose, profit and prosperity in your life through soulful selling, mindful marketing, conscious leadership and creative culture. If you want to reach out to me, it's joedalton.ie. You have an awesome week and take care and look after yourself.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, Crossing the Rubicon.